Amriteshwaryai Namaha. Om Amriteshwaryai Namaha. Om Amriteshwaryai Namaha. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Amba Tvamanusantatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim. Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayatapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purna Prajwalito Jnanamaya Pradipa Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamrita Duhe Namaha. Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsya Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Mahata Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Namah Shivaya. And feels just like yesterday. No, actually, yeah, it's 2 months. It's too long. We didn't have the last class. But we are back, and Krishna's back and Arjuna's back. And 1 second. Okay. So we're in chapter 3, and I hope everybody remembers what we were talking about last time, 2 months ago. In order to refresh our memories, we will just very quickly recreate that flow up to this point. In chapter 3, there are 5 sections. Now, this is a very important part of the Gita, and it's especially relevant to the upcoming days here in the ashram, because we have a lot of karma yoga to do. And this is exactly what Lord Krishna is talking about. So when I was preparing the notes for today, I was thinking to myself, wow, it's like Amma orchestrated this. Maybe she made us wait 2 months just so that we could cover this section of the Gita right before she comes. So this 3rd chapter, there's an introduction up to verse 7, and then we are now in the heart of the Karma Yoga teachings, which is from verse 8 to 20, first half of verse 20. And then from the second half of verse 20 to verse 29, he talks about the quote-unquote duties of a jnani, someone who has transcended Karma Yoga and is a knower of the self. And it's not really duties, but it means how they would behave, how they would live. And then from verse 30 to 35, he again summarizes the Karma Yoga teaching, which is a common technique that masters use. They give you an introduction, and then when they finish, they give you a summary again at the end. And from verse 36 to 43, it's a question-answer about the obstacles to Karma Yoga. It's something that all of us, I'm sure, would be very curious to hear. Arjuna asks a question and Krishna responds. So that's the whole chapter. We are still in the heart of the Karma Yoga section. So Krishna has... the last class we talked about what is the karma portion of Karma Yoga. In other words, what are the activities or the actions that qualify as karma yoga. We talked about that on actually more than one occasion, so we won't repeat that. But now today Krishna is going to talk about the attitude, which is what you would probably say is yoga. Karma part and yoga part. Put them together, you've got karma yoga. So yoga is the attitude. And that's what he's going to stress today. He's going to focus on the attitude today. Because no matter how good the activity or the action you perform, if your attitude is wrong, it's still not karma yoga. It's still not a spiritual practice. It's still not helping us get any closer to the goal. Let's say that we want to, Amma's coming, everybody's all excited, and we're thinking, wow, it's really great, I can't wait for Amma to come. But then let's say there might be people out there who think, oh, when Amma comes, there's so much work. I have to do a lot of work, what a hassle, and then I have to go to and from the ashram. I spend a lot of money on gas, and I get stuck in traffic, and it's really a hassle, and then when I go to the ashram, I have to buy food, oh my gosh, all these things, so we might think it's a big hassle. So, then we participate sort of half-heartedly in preparing. This doesn't qualify as karma yoga. Instead, ideally, the attitude should be that all of our actions are an offering to God. We're doing it for God. If you've read Amma's biography, you'll see when she was a little girl, she just visualized that everything she was doing was for Krishna, was for Lord Krishna. If she was sweeping the floor, she would say, I'm sweeping Krishna's floor. Everything was for her beloved deity. So this is the actual, the role model that we should be following. And Amma would say that, we go to temples, say, and we look at a pujari or a priest doing a puja, a ritual, a ceremony, and we think, oh, he's a priest, oh, I can't do that kind of thing. But Amma would say that we're already doing a puja in our lives. All of our actions, and even our thoughts and words, are a kind of worship if we have the right attitude. We just don't consider ourselves a priest or a priestess. We think that you can go to a temple and you see that such people. Amma would say, no, all your actions are an offering. You just don't consider those an offering yet. So instead of, when we're doing our seva, or our quote-unquote selfless service, instead of thinking that I'm doing this and then it's because I'm doing this that everything is happening, that's kind of a trap that we fall in when we're doing seva. Amma would say that we should be grateful to God for having this opportunity to grow on the spiritual path through service. So if we have to do some kind of menial job, there's going to be a lot of menial jobs coming up. Like, for example, we can't find anybody to be in charge of garbage when Amma comes. I was just talking with Kashi yesterday about this. Nobody wants to do garbage. Nobody wants to do compost. So it's a menial job, right? But if you said it's Amma's compost, it's Amma's garbage. If we said we want someone to take Amma's garbage and move it, everyone would be, okay, I'll do it, And we say, okay, the whole place is Amma's garbage, every bit of garbage in this place is Amma's. So then people would stand up, but we don't have that attitude. That's the only problem. So that attitude is what we're trying to cultivate in this field of karma yoga. And then if we have the right attitude, we'll always feel like we want to do more. Amma used to say that, oh Krishna, give me more work, give me more work. I want your work. That's what she would say when she was a little girl. What were we doing when we were little kids? We weren't having noble thoughts like that, at least I wasn't. So the first half of karma yoga is considered this attitude of offering everything, all of our actions to God. And I think I talked about it here multiple times. Ishvara Arpana Buddhi is what they call it in Sanskrit. Everything is an offering at the feet of the Lord. But then that's only half of it. Anybody remember what the second half was? When you do the action, you have one attitude, but then it's not all doing. Ultimately, the results of your actions come back. And then there was another attitude that we need to have. Anybody remember what that was? Prasada Buddhi. Yeah, Prasada Buddhi. Sort of the same. Prasada Buddhi means, what does Prasada mean? Yeah, but also even in a common sense, what do we think of as Prasad? Yeah, the blessings that come back to us from God.
taking back whatever is offered to God.
Yeah, we receive it with gratitude, right? So whatever comes back to us from God, you offer something, and then say in a temple or here in the ashram, at the end of the arati, you get some small prasad or something like that. Or when you go to see Amma, she gives a little bit, one little tiny candy. It's not the size. You don't think, I wanted a truckload of it, you know. It's not the size, it's the fact that it's coming from Amma, or it's coming from the altar, or it's coming from the temple. That's what makes it special. So, you know, you can go to the store on the corner and buy the same candy, like Hershey's Kisses, right? If you want, you can go to, you know, Walmart or whatever, you could buy a big box of them if you want. But there's a difference, right? Between going and buying it and eating it and getting it from Amma. So that difference comes from the fact that we feel this came from Amma. Wow, this chocolate's special. And it is. But more than anything, it's our attitude that makes a difference. So it's not just the chocolate. Everything that comes back to us in life is supposed to be from God. We're supposed to think of it as being from God. So let's say again, I have to put it in the context of the ashram, because the next 3 weeks is going to be a lot of fun and games, and you know, a lot of emotional challenges will come because the work is going to keep getting more and more intense. So let's say you're doing some seva, really, you know, with all your heart and soul, and someone comes up and says, I know you're just doing this to, you know, kiss up to Amma and the Swamis. Let's say someone says that to you. You're just trying to get, you know, Amma. How would you feel, right? You'd feel like, you know, there are questions, you know, I'm not doing it like that. So then you react emotionally. Even if it's not true, we still react like that. So this shows that there was a subconscious expectation in our mind that we wanted to be praised. We didn't want to be criticized, right? If we didn't have any expectation, we wouldn't care what people say to us. So even that, we have to let go of all these things in order for it to be really pure karma yoga. People can say whatever they want. I know what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it as an offering to Amma or to God. That's how it should be. So, and if people say the wrong thing to us, we start to dislike them very quickly. So, what is the advantage of these two attitudes, Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi? The advantage is that no matter what we do, we will feel there's meaning in it, and we'll also feel that it's not so difficult. There are all different kinds of duties that we have in life. Getting ready for Amma's tour is our duty. We're her children, we're the Chicago, you know, group of devotees. So we have to get the program ready. We're not going to walk in on 10 o'clock on the 1st with a nice sari, not having done anything, right? So it's our duty to get it ready. But part of that will be unpleasant things. Not everything, you know. Sitting there and singing bhajans for Amma may be fun. You know, standing next to Amma and doing some, you know, nice seva near her is special. We feel that's great. But there's a lot of unpleasant duties to do as well. Like I said, like the garbage and the compost, and so far nobody wants to do it. So these unpleasant, quote-unquote unpleasant duties can become pleasant if we have this attitude. Not all the things we have to do in life are easy. So like, even people who raise kids, they have kids because they want to have kids. But then while they're raising the kids, they're like, oh, this is so difficult, you know? At one point, you feel it's really difficult. But if you have this attitude that this is Amma's child, or taking care of my parents, this is Amma's child, we can feel, you know, love for every task that we're doing. If you're at the office, you know, you're doing this for spiritual growth. Even if it feels a little bit like a drag or a drudgery, you can enjoy it more. It's not as difficult. So, here in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's duty is not a very easy one. It's an unpleasant duty from his standpoint. He really doesn't want to do this at all. And so he needs this attitude because he can't escape this duty. It's absolutely necessary, as we've discussed many times in this class, to protect the innocent people of the country. So he needs to develop this attitude so that he can do his duty with the proper state of mind. And if we don't have the second part of that attitude of prasada buddhi, I want to emphasize that because when we get upset with other people, we have to remember that this is where we're failing. Let's say you wanted something to go a certain way, and someone else comes along and they're like, no, it's got to be this way. And then we start arguing, and then we start blaming that guy. It's because he came along and ruined everything, or it's because, Swami put him there, or, Amma put him there, or maybe it's Amma's fault, or maybe it's my astrology is bad. All these external factors, we can blame other people and other things for the problems. But that means, whatever it is that we're blaming, it means we haven't accepted it. We're refusing inside to accept the reality of the moment. And it means we have not recognized that there's some divine will and that it's actually part of our growth process. We could have said, wow, this is accelerated spiritual growth. I'm really evolving quickly, dealing with people that I'm not used to dealing with. I'm not really very good at dealing with people like this, so it's helping me grow really quickly. We missed that interpretation completely. So we have to be very careful the way we react to the circumstances, especially the ones in the ashram, because everything that happens in the ashram, we should consider it as orchestrated by Amma. The whole world too, but at least here in the ashram, we should be able to see that this is all orchestrated by Amma. I think I told you on the North India tour, there's a lot of challenges, and one year people were arguing with each other so much on the buses and everything, and then Amma came on the bus and traveled with us for some time, and she just, after there had been some argument going on, she came in and she said, "My children, I know there's a lot of challenges here, on this tour. Just consider that everything that happens, Amma is sending that challenge to you. So welcome that with a smile, And so we were just like, how does she know, what we were just doing? So we might think when a challenge comes, I'm such a great devotee of Amma, I'm an innocent person, I've never done anything wrong, I'm such a noble person, why do I have to suffer? I can understand, my next door neighbor suffering, I can understand that guy I hate, him suffering, let him suffer, but me? I've never even killed a mosquito, or I've never told a lie, which is a lie itself, right? So I'm totally innocent. Why do I have to suffer? So this is actually a very immature perspective on spirituality. If we look at the lives of all the great beings in history, they've all suffered. Look at them. It's not like they were living in, 5-star hotels and having meals brought to them, luxurious meals brought to them every day. They had a lot of suffering in their lives. All you have to do is look at Jesus and his disciples. Who would join Christianity if they read that story with an immature view? You would think, I don't want to be crucified. Why am I going to this church? But we understand that the point is, a mature perspective shows us that we're not being spiritual so that we can avoid suffering per se. We're pursuing spirituality because we want to evolve, we want to realize who we truly are. So there's no connection between being spiritual and avoiding problems, because we're going to have problems anyhow. Better get used to it. That's what Amma says. Everybody suffers in life, even Bill Gates, right? So if he has problems, you better get ready to deal with problems. So we just need to accept the challenges that come in life, and if we can't accept them, what do we do? What do you do if you can't accept the problems and the challenges that come in life? If you don't have the strength to face the challenges. That's what we do now. Amma says you can pray for the strength. If you don't have the strength, you can say, Amma, please give me the strength to face these problems. I'm unprepared. I'm 46 years old. I could have spent my whole life preparing for this challenge. I didn't. That's my fault. It's not your fault, but now I'm helpless. Please help me. Give me the strength to face this problem. You can say something like that. Okay, let's read verse 11. Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu aha parasparam bhavayantaha Shreyaparam avapsyatha. Okay, let's have someone read the English.
Through yajna you sustain the gods, and those gods will sustain you. By sustaining one another, you will attain the highest good.
This is really beautiful. I often quote this verse because the meaning of this verse is much deeper than the superficial words. We have to understand there's two different levels of meaning to every scriptural quote or every section of the scriptures. One is the literal meaning and one is the implied meaning. So the same thing we see in the Bible and every scripture throughout the world. So here, the gods, what are the gods, you know? And then what does it mean to prosper? What does it mean to propitiate and nourish each other, you know? It's a much deeper meaning than superficial interpretation. So earlier, I think in the 10th verse, Krishna had talked about Ishtakama Duk, the cow that fulfills all of our desires. Right? Well, what does that mean? That's what he says that yajna, or he says karma yoga is the wish-fulfilling cow. You know, okay, wish-fulfilling cow sounds pretty good. Keep it in my backyard and whenever I want something, I go and ask the cow for it. No, it's not like that. It means it is a means of achieving everything that we need and desire in life. And that means that ultimately it leads to the supreme goal. There's nothing higher than self-realization, God realization. And through karma yoga or yajna, we can achieve that through it, not only by it. He's giving one way in which this is true through the interpretation of this verse. He says, propitiating the devas, the gods. Now, what are the gods or what are the devas? There's different ways of understanding this. In the Indian tradition, it says that all of these functions in nature are presided over by one god or another. And this is one area where I feel there's a lot of similarity or a lot in common with other traditional cultures around the world. Japan, they believe that. The Native American traditions, they believe there's gods that preside over all different functions of nature. And the ancient Celts, they believe there was a god for each herb that you would pluck from nature. So if you have gods in presiding over different functions in nature, then it only follows that there must be gods that preside over the functions inside of us as well. And it's true. During her satsang, Amma said, there in the yogic tradition, we have this concept that there's a God that presides over every bodily function. And we need the grace of all of these gods. We need the grace of the God of rain, grace of the God of sun, grace of the God of earth, water, and the bodily functions like the heart. If someone has a heart attack, I guess in the ancient days they would have said, he lost the grace of the God that presides over the heart. Right? I mean, if you're 110 when it happens, that's a different story, but sometimes, at a young age it can happen too. So we need the grace of all of these deities that preside over even the bodily functions. Amma's point was, let's say, she wanted to stress why we need grace. She said there's a God that presides over raising the hand, and there's a different God that presides over lowering the hand. So she said, let's say you have this grace, but then you don't have the grace of the other God. She says for the rest of your life, you'll be stuck with your hand up like this. She said that many times during satsang. She says, so we need humility, we need to pray for the grace of everything in creation. So like that, in the Vedic days, they had Varuna, Yama, and Indra, all these gods that presided over life and death in different functions. So nourishing the gods means living in harmony with nature and all of the forces in nature. If we pay homage and respect all of these forces in nature, then we will be living in harmony with nature, and we will get their grace as well. Amma says in the old days, we didn't have this many natural disasters because people were living in harmony with nature and respecting all these forces. So today, with greed and we take too much from nature, no wonder we lose the grace of Mother Nature and have landslides and all these problems. So we, in our greed, we're living in ignorance of these forces, and Amma would say we're deep asleep in our egoistic selfishness. So that's why we have this rude wake-up call that's coming to us from nature. What is that? What is the rude awakening or the forceful wake-up call that Mother Nature is sending us? Huh? All these things, natural disasters, earthquakes, Amma has said it over and over again. Even in Japan, I didn't say, when Amma arrived in Tokyo on May 25th, within an hour when she got to the ashram, there was a big earthquake. Big means, for Illinois, it's definitely big. You don't have earthquakes here. It was a 5.5 or something like that. It's pretty strong. Even for Japan, everyone was, literally shaken, right? And so then the next day, when we started doing darshan, a reporter came up and interviewed her. One of the questions was, why are we having all these earthquakes? And then the same day, there was a volcanic eruption in southern Japan. I don't know if it came in the news over here, way out of not in the populated area. So people are worried, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, what are we supposed to do? And Amma didn't say it in this few words, but she has said many times, all these natural disasters are a wake-up call, right? So if this is a wake-up call to us, when they happen, what is our duty? What are we supposed to do? It's a wake-up call, it's an alarm clock. What are you supposed to do when the alarm clock goes off? Wake up, right? If you don't wake up, it's just going to keep, you hit snooze, right? And then it just keeps, these days, like you use the cell phone, my cell phone, when it first goes, it has this la la la, like a really soft song it plays. If you hit snooze, it goes la 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 la, a little louder, and then if you hit it too many times, it starts playing really obnoxious sounds, right? To make you wake up. So it's like that. If we keep hitting the snooze button over and over again, finally Mother Nature is like, wake up, right? So we're not doing our dharma. Man thinks that he has to conquer nature, but Amma would say, don't preoccupy yourself with conquering nature. If you conquer yourself, then Mother Nature will become your servant. All the forces in nature will become your servant. That's all you have to do, is conquer yourself. So the other interpretation of this, nourishing the deities, what's the translation here? What do they say? Propitiating or something? Sustain the gods. Yeah, sustain the gods. Many different interpretations of that. So sustaining the gods inside the body, what does that mean? It means giving proper attention to the body, nourishing the body to the appropriate degree. Not too little, not too much. So then the body will give its blessings to us and take care of us. So it's it's mutual assistance. And in nature, if we sustain the natural forces and we respect and pay homage to the powers in nature, what does Amma say is the benefit of that? What happens? Not just you avoid hurricanes and earthquakes, but what else? There's two. You avoid the bad and you get the good. So what's the good? What's the good? It's not just avoiding bad things from nature. What are the good things that we want from nature? You want rain at the right time, yes, Shane?
I was just going to say, receive abundance.
You want abundance. For abundance, you need the sun and the rain in the proper proportions, right? So this is what Amma says. You get sun when you need sun, you get rain when you need rain, and everything is harmonious, it's abundant, you get the food and everything. So, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that every tree is compared with the Lord's hair. And the rivers are his blood vessels, or his veins. So what are we doing when we chop down the forests? Huh? You know, they have, in Japan they're still doing it. You know, I was traveling around Japan, the big patches of forest have been chopped down. Now after I learned this, every time I see that, it's like they just took this thing and just gave a mohawk to the Lord. You know, it's like a big patch of hair missing on God's head. It's really sad, no? And when you pollute the river, then what is it that we're doing? Right? Poisoning the what? The rivers, right? That's what they say, that the rivers are the God's blood vessels. So we're poisoning God's blood, his veins and arteries. And if you're creating a dam, a big dam in a river, what does that amount to? For God. Blocking the flow of blood in the veins. What happens when you block the flow of blood in the veins? Heart attack, right? So nature is having a heart attack, basically, because of all the intervention that we're doing in nature. So some people get scared and they think, well, what are we supposed to do? I mean, if this is all the bad things that human beings are doing to nature, is there anything we can do? And Amma spells it out one way, all the different service projects she has and humanitarian projects she has and the spiritual activities she has. In the traditional sense, they used to always talk about Pancha Maha Yajna. You might have heard the 5 great offerings or sacrifices in the Indian tradition. So we talked about that before. I'm not going to repeat all that again. But we have 5 types of debt in the world. So we pay off those debts to all beings and the ancestors and the gods by doing these 5 offerings every single day. So here for us it would be like chanting in the morning and studying Amma's teachings and doing archana or meditating and service to nature and service to humanity, etc. Also, if you look at the Lalita Sahasranama, there's one verse that says Om Pancha Yajna Priyaye Namaha. Means Devi is the one who loves these 5 types of offering, 5 types of sacrifice. So it means Amma likes them too, right? So Amma likes to see people offer things to counterbalance all of our indebtedness in this world. Offer things means offer ourselves, offer our time, offer our energy. And in Amma's case, she doesn't need these 5 types of offering because her whole life is already an offering. All day long. Whatever she does is an offering because she sees God in all beings. Even last year, if you remember, when there was a little bird that came during darshan, did anybody see that? Someone brought it to her in a box. Little baby bird. And for her, this is God also, right? So she was stroking it, she just couldn't bring her, self, she couldn't forget that bird. She kept feeding it bananas. Even when they took it away, she was talking about that little baby bird for a long time. And the next day she was asking what happened to it. It was really powerful. How much divinity she sees everywhere. Hugs a human being, and the same love she gives to this baby bird. So, the next verse teaches us what is the difference in acting with that attitude and in acting without it. What happens in each of these circumstances. So let's read verse 12 together. Ishtan bhogan ivo deva tasyante yajna bhavitaha tair dattan apradayebhyo yo bhunkte stena eva saha. Okay.
Satisfied by the yajna, the gods will certainly bestow the enjoyments you desire. But he who enjoys their gifts, offering to them is merely...
Without offering to them.
Enjoys their gifts without offering to them is merely a thief.
Wow. That's kind of a scary way of putting it, right? It's an extreme way of putting it, but as we're going to see, we need to hear it in such forceful words because, you know, our nature is to kind of want to take more than we give because we're not selfless saints like Amma. So in order to get us to change that nature, sometimes Krishna or Amma has to say really strong words to us because they don't need to teach us to be selfish, we're already selfish. They need to teach us how to be selfless, how to give more. So, it sounds extreme, but it's needed for us. So, what he's saying is if we have the right attitude, if we have that yajna means offering or sacrifice, if we have that attitude of offering and sacrifice, then God or the gods will give everything to us. Remember, there's only one supreme power. Don't think that we have lots and lots of gods, really. Only one supreme power, but still, just like there's only one government in America, you still have Kane County office and St. Charles in Geneva. If you live in Geneva, you have to go to the Geneva office and ask them for a permit to do something. So like that, it's only one God, but if you want water, you pray to Varuna. If you want in the proper wind, if it's hot and you want a cool wind, you pray to Vayu, like that. Different manifestations of the supreme power, that's all. So God will give whatever we want if we have that proper attitude. And if we don't want anything in the material sense, what does God give us? Let's say you have that attitude of self-sacrifice offering, and you don't want anything material, then what do you get? What is God going to give us? Grace for?
Happiness. Shantata.
Yeah, and what is the ultimate in happiness? What's the ultimate shanti? Samadhi, yeah. Because samadhi and shanti, peace of mind, there's different levels of peace of mind. We sit in the backyard and drink a cup of tea, we feel peace of mind, but that goes away also. The ultimate peace of mind is Amma's state of mind. So if we don't want anything material from this world, God will say, okay, he doesn't want anything material, I have nothing, I only have this to give him, and that is inner peace. And he's already got that, okay, now I give him even higher bliss. He's already got that, okay, I give him God realization, self-realization. So, this yajna or this karma yoga science actually is capable of giving us anything. That's why he calls it the wish-fulfilling cow. If you want something in the world, material, you can get that to some degree, because you get grace, like Poti said. Like Tom said. But if you don't want any material things, you'll get higher spiritual things. So one commentator compared it with a multifunction device. It's the modern interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita. What's a multifunction device? We have these in our offices and houses these days. What are they? It's like a fax and a copy. It's a printer, and it can take photocopies. Also can scan things, but the only challenge is it can only do one thing at a time. You can't take a fax and print at the same time or scan at the same time. So like that, karma yoga or yajna can do anything essentially, but we have to choose which outcome we want, and we get that one. If you want moksha, if you want liberation, then you want only liberation, and you'll get that. But if we're interested in a lot of worldly things, we'll get that, but we can't have that and moksha at the same time, because one is finite and the other is infinite. You can't say, I want the infinite and I want something finite, because they're mutually exclusive. If you want the infinite, then you want only the infinite. So, we slowly relinquish the smaller things, and eventually maybe we'll make it to the infinite. Or you take the express bus and you just go straight to the infinite. And but if we don't have that attitude, we're basically ungrateful, and thankless individuals. Right? We take more than we need. Just take, and we never give back. So basically, it's like what we're doing to nature. Cutting down all the trees and then not replanting them. Taking all the minerals and resources from the earth and not giving anything back. So what Krishna is saying is that's thievery, basically. That's being a thief. So we have been pillaging and plundering Mother Nature for decades and decades, maybe centuries we could say now. So basically acting like thieves. And you've heard of Manusmriti? There's an ancient, I wouldn't call it a scripture. It's actually Dharma Shastra. It's a text that talks about the social laws of society. In this text, it says that the definition of a thief is given. It's about, I think this is about 2,000, 3,000 years old. Whatever is required to maintain your body, only that much is yours. You can take that. Whatever is required to maintain your body, you can take that. That's okay. One who wants to possess more is a thief. Think about that. So I think we're all thieves, maybe, right?
First verse.
Yeah. But this is not talking about, that's not talking about social laws. Ishavasya Upanishad? Yeah, all this is covered in God. Yeah, but he's talking about just your resources in life. Like if you just, go to the garden like we do. We go to the garden, pluck some leaves of lettuce, whatever we need for that day. That's not being a thief. But let's say you go dig up the whole thing and then you go on the street and then sell it for some profit. That's being a thief.
The third and fourth verse says the same thing.
Yeah.
Actually, you can call it the Indian code of Hammurabi.
Hammurabi, meaning?
The Hammurabi had codes for every segment of the society in Mesopotamia. In India, Manu was the firstborn of Brahma by legend. He wrote this manuscript.
Yeah, there's many different, it's supposed to have been many different Manus also. We don't know which Manu it was. But anyhow, it's the old laws of the country, many thousands of years ago. It's also said that ingratitude is the worst weakness of human beings. And in the Indian tradition, they have these expiatory rites. You know what an expiatory rite is? We don't think about those very much. These are rituals that we perform to purge ourselves of sins. In the Christian context, what do they used to call them? Pardons, or like, what do they have? Something where you would go and you would do some... Not confession, but in India they're called, in English they're called expiatory rites. You do some kind of ritual and you purge yourself of a sin that you did. So there are these expiatory rites for all of any kind of sin that you could possibly have done. There's even one for killing people, right? But it's said that there's not an expiatory rite for the sin of ingratitude. Interesting. So, the Karma Yoga way of life is one where we recognize this supreme power pervading the whole universe, and we live with gratitude and we give back. We don't just take, we give back, and we remember that actually this is all God's grace coming to us. So it's a humble, reverential way of life. So what do we really gain? What is the ultimate gain that we can get from, not ultimate, but the more important gain we acquire when we do Karma Yoga, or we have that attitude of Yajna Bhava? He's going to talk about that in verse 13. Yajna Shishtasina Santo Shishtasina Santo Muccante Sarva Kilbishaihi Bhunjate Te Tvagam Papa Ye Pachantyatma Karanat. Okay, verse 13.
The righteous who eat the remains of the yajna are freed from all sins. But the unrighteous who prepare food for themselves alone, truly they eat sin.
Again, oh my gosh, all these years I've been cooking only for myself. I've been eating sin, So think about it, Again, literal interpretation versus intended meaning, right? We have to be careful we don't misunderstand it. So, earlier in chapter 3, Krishna was saying that we have to do karma yoga or this yajna because it is a commandment of God, it is our duty. And then if we don't do it, we incur sin. And then he moved on to say that it is yajna, it's an offering, right? That's a nice way of looking at it as well. Here he gives a third interpretation of it, which is that if you do karma yoga or if you do yajna in your life, it purifies you. Purifies you of what? Here he says purifies you of sin. So it's no longer an obligation, but it's out of recognition that it's helping me progress on the spiritual path. I do this because I want to evolve and grow, and I need to purify myself in order to do that. So this notion of doing karma yoga or yajna in order to purify oneself honestly only appeals to people who have an interest in spiritual growth. We have to, acknowledge that. You can't give that line to somebody who only wants material wealth. But fortunately, he talks about this as something that will also help you in the material world. If you have material goals, even then, karma yoga is helpful for you. But if you want something higher, then definitely it's helpful for you. So here it's for people who are interested in spiritual growth and moksha eventually. So an important point here, though, becomes clarifying what do we mean by sin. And Amma has said before, because you have that word in some Sanskritam, papa, right? Or I think it's papa in Sanskrit. So we have sin in English and we have sin in the Indian context. Do they mean the same thing to someone from the Judeo-Christian tradition and then someone in India? No, they definitely don't. And Amma clarifies that. She says it in a beautiful way, which I think will help us understand in which way it differs. She has said that sin is anything that obstructs self-knowledge, or anything that takes us away from God, or our true self. That's all sin is. Any actions, thoughts, words, and actions that take us away from our true self, our true nature, that's all a sin is. So it is said that we're not punished for our sins. We don't suffer for our sins, we suffer due to our sins. Right? Suffering comes when we go away from God. We've all experienced that. When we're immersed in the world and we're not remembering our higher purpose, that's when we really suffer. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So sin is not just like something, like you did something that you weren't supposed to do and you feel guilty for it. It's something that's literally taking you away from God. So even poverty could actually be considered a merit, a blessing, if it takes you towards God, right? Does that make sense? It's not like you're poor because you did something bad in a past life and you're being punished. For some people, poverty, and we're not saying people should be poor, but we should understand that there's many different ways of looking at things. A rich person can be miserable and take his own life. And a poor person, because they're poor, maybe they're protected from all these enticements and temptations, and as a result they remember God. So it sometimes can be a blessing even. So it's not a question of material wealth that is a blessing only. So this is the definition that we would give for sin in the Vedantic context or in the Indian context. And what is this primary obstruction to self-knowledge or to realizing God? If sin is taking us away from God, the deepest thing that's taking us away from God is delusion. We've talked about that before here, right? Our delusion that leads us to think that we're going to get happiness from this world. This is basically the most fundamental thing. And we suffer from that all the time. Somehow we think, only if just somehow I can make this happen, then I'll be happy. Just if I can get this thing resolved, this problem resolved, then I can be happy. In Japan, I see it all the time because Japan as a society is still very traditional and very sort of straightforward about their view of happiness. In India, we see it too. If I can just get my kid married, I'll be happy. And then after the kid's married, if I can just have a grandchild, I'll be happy. And after my grandchild can just do this and then go into the right college and get a job, you know. And then if it's you, if I can just get married, I'll be happy. You know, and then if I can, okay, now I've got I just need a house. And then I'll be happy. And then if I can just pay off the mortgage, I'll be happy, you know. Now I want a kid, you know. It's just like we keep on thinking, deluding ourselves into thinking that each one of these so-called goals is going to give us happiness. That deluded state will actually rob us of our happiness forever. Amma says it's okay to pursue all these things in the world. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not bad, but we should not think that that's where happiness comes from. So even in an ashram, we tend to fall for that delusion sometimes because we see that tendency that we developed our whole life, we bring it with us into the ashram. You know, if I could just get the ashram to be like this, or if I can just get people to cooperate with this and to do this for me, and if I can just make Amma's program happen like this, you know, we're doing it with a bit of self-interest. So we have to do it for Amma's sake, for the sake of the people who are coming. Then it really becomes karma yoga. And Amma has said many times that in order to remove this delusion from our mind, we need to understand the nature of the world. She says it over and over again. What does she mean by that? What is the nature of the world? What do we know about the nature of the world now? If you sit like this in a quiet moment and you think about it, it comes to you. Just say anything that comes to mind. What is the nature of the world?
Change.
Change. Yeah, what did you say?
Transient, impermanent.
Yeah, impermanence, change. Okay. Anything else?
Complete indifference to oneself, to me.
Indifference to?
To oneself. The world is completely indifferent to me.
Oh, yeah. The world, my self-interest has nothing to do with what the world wants. Yeah, of course. What else? Imbalance, okay. In the material sense, maybe, yeah? In nature, there's only balance. But we create the imbalance here. Amma has said another thing about the nature of the world is that people are fickle. Today they say, I like you, tomorrow they say, I hate you. You know? And also, people, you know, are weak-minded, selfish. So we are also selfish. And we want other people to not be selfish, but then I'm saying, but we're selfish. So we should be able to see that everybody else is selfish. So don't expect other people to have, like Balan said, to have your best interest in mind. Don't expect that that's unrealistic. So, because we need to understand this nature of the world, can we do that living in a cave in the Himalayas somewhere? It's impossible. If you're already beyond that, it's okay. But this is why Amma wants us all to engage in different things in the world, service and some kind of selfless activity, because that gives us an opportunity to study and learn the nature of the world. We interact with people. We can't just hide and be all by ourselves and expect that we're going to mature in our view of how the world works. So karma yoga is essential for removing that delusion from our mind. And for that we need to understand that, definitely that, the world is not the source of our happiness. We should also, I want to, in this process of purification that Krishna mentions here, we can get a good analogy from what Amma does when she installs a new temple. Has anybody been there for what is called a Pratishta ceremony in India? She spends 5 days or a whole week practically. You were there for Palakkad maybe, yeah? So, this is really a beautiful analogy for how our spiritual path works. There's this big festival, lasts about a week long, and there is a image of God, we call it a murti, that needs to be installed in the temple. And Amma's going to do that installation, right? She's going to put her consciousness into that, make it sacred. So let's say you were to be the one to install that. You just walk over there and just, okay, plop it down on top, okay, done. You know, it's not like that, right? You don't just walk into the building's done, okay, put it in. You know, there's a lot of purification that has to take place. So there's a lot of rituals, a lot of prayers, a lot of chanting that goes on in that same area, and especially inside the temple where that deity is going to be installed. 5 days, even after Amma comes. Before she comes, of course, lots of stuff is done. But even after she comes, they don't have her installed on the first day, typically. 5 days of purificatory rituals that take place there. Only after that, Amma goes into the sanctum sanctorum and she installs the deity in that location. So what does that tell us about our spiritual path? Which one is longer, the purification process or the installation process? Installation process takes like only a couple hours, right? So if we want to install God or Amma or whatever you want to the self, my true self, that if we want that light to shine brightly inside of us, that part is, the realization is a momentary, God realization, it happens in an instant. Up until that point, it's a very long process of purification. Unfortunately, these days people don't have the patience to go through that process. So you read stories about people who read one book or two books, sat down and meditated and say that they realized God, and now they're suddenly a guru and taking money from people. Very convenient. So Amma says it doesn't work like that really. So that the purification process is also like if you have to paint a wall, like to get it ready for the painting process, what do? You don't just suddenly throw the paint on. You also have to clean, you have to scrub the wall. Usually they use sandpaper and they scrub the wall if it's a concrete wall or something like that. So then only can you put the paint on. So karma yoga is that sandpaper that we use to sort of scrub the mind so that it's ready for the paint of God consciousness to be spread on our heart. And we might think, okay, how am I going to do this thing of where I don't incur sin because I'm cooking only for myself? Let's say you're single and you're living at home. How am I going to do this? Well, there's actually an easy way. You just make a sankalpa. Let's say you're about to cook. You're going to put some rice on or something like that. You make a sankalpa, or you make a mental resolve that you're going to save some of that food for other people. So we start off with some kind of dry goods, right? It's maybe lentils or rice or something like that. So we take a handful of that and we keep it in a jar. And then we make rice for ourselves. Take a handful of lentil, keep it in another jar. So you do that two, 3 times a day. You've got 3 handfuls of all these things. By the end of the month, you have 90 handfuls of rice and lentils and all that. And then once a month, we do what? The first Sunday of every month? Chesed house. We cook food for the needy people. So you've saved all this stuff from your house, you bring it, and then you offer it for that. We use it to cook and feed the needy people. So no sin. You're actually offering, every time you eat, you're effectively offering something to a needy person. So there's different techniques we can use to live according to spiritual principles. As long as we have awareness, that's the key thing. And remember that the eating part is only symbolic. It's representative of all of our actions, right? So we should keep in mind, it's not just the food. Every action that we do, we have to have some mental resolve that the benefit of that go to as many people as possible. Let's say you have, Amma has suggested this kind of thing. Let's say you get a paycheck every other, what do we, in America typically, Every 2 weeks, people get their paychecks, right? Okay, so you get your paycheck every other week. And who knows how much it is? Let's say it's $2,000. So someone gets a paycheck, $2,000, and he goes, cashes it. You know, when you're young and excited, you'll go out and just blow half of your money, over the weekend just having fun, right? But in this case, if we're spiritual, that first money that we use from the paycheck, take that, set it aside for a needy cause, for a noble cause. Give it to charity. Use it to help somebody. Give thanks to God from that first $50, $100, whatever it is we use from the paycheck. That means that the rest of the paycheck is what we call yajna shishta. What do they call it? The remnants. Isn't that what it says? He who eats the remnants of yajna. What do they translate it as here? Who eats the remains of the yajna, right? So whoever eats the remains of the sacred offering is purified from sin. So before you cook for yourself, you set aside some food. So effectively, you're eating the leftovers. You're eating the remains. The first $100 from your paycheck, you offer that for some noble cause. So you're quote-unquote eating the remnants of your paycheck. Does that make sense? The first few minutes of the day, you offer it for a noble cause. And then the rest of the day, you use maybe for your personal pursuits. But you're effectively eating the remnants. So it's not just food, it's everything we do. And if we don't do that, we're sinners. Just means we're going away from our true self. Because the nature of the world is sacrifice, as Krishna has said. Even the body shows us that sacrifice is our nature. Just look at the body is constantly offering. All the organs are doing their duties without asking anything in return from us. You just imagine if every morning you had to coax your spleen to work. It's like, okay, kidney, please, will you please help me here? I really need your help, and they can, no, I want better, I want a better labor contract. I'm going to negotiate. I want more retirement benefits or something like that. This is, no part of our body does that. So there's a selfless principle pervading even our own body. So that means that we should understand that if we want to achieve our true nature, we have to live that principle. And Amma tells a story about how people think that they can get away with not giving. We think that we can take and take and take and not give anything back. Ultimately, if we do that, we're the ones that suffer. So she tells a story like this. There's a kingdom. Once upon a time, in a kingdom, far, far away, there was a king. And there's a king, And this king was a very noble person. But at one point, for whatever reason, there was a famine, and the children were all malnourished. So they were really worried that the children were not going to get enough nutrition, and that a whole generation would be malnourished, and that would affect the whole kingdom, right? So when you're old, you want the young people to take care of you. So they wanted, there was some self-interest there too, but they wanted to nourish the children properly. So the king had this big tank. And he said, everybody from every house should come and pour 1 cup of milk into this tank. And what we will do is we will put all those cups of milk together, and we're going to distribute that to the children. So he says, and this is a royal decree, absolutely you must do it. That means if you don't do it, they kill you, right? So everybody from the village, everybody from the kingdom came and poured 1 cup into this tank. So at the end of the day, the king sends his minister over to look and see how much milk there is. What did he find inside the tank? It's all water, 100% water. Because you go there, nobody knows what you're pouring into the tank. You just go there with like a little vessel. They can cover it. They have these vessels. In those days, maybe earthen pots. You wrap a thing on top, and when nobody's looking, you pour water in there. You figure, everybody else is pouring milk. I can pour water. Who's going to know the difference? But everybody thought like that, so what they ended up was a big tank full of water. But who loses out as a result of that? That means even your child doesn't get the milk. And if you don't have any children, that means the whole generation, when you're older and you need people to help you in the country, they're all going to be malnourished. So this is how we think we're fooling God, but you can't fool God. You can only fool yourself. Let us read the last verse that we're going to do today, verse 14. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavaha yajñād bhavati parjanyo yajña karma samudbhavaha.
From food, creatures come into being. From rain is produced food. From yajna comes forth rain. And yajna is born of action.
Okay. So this is the fourth take on Karma Yoga. The fourth sort of standpoint or perspective on Karma Yoga and Yajna. He's trying to give us different sort of standpoints so that when we go back home and we need to remember the importance of this, sometimes we need to convince ourselves why to do this, right? What am I doing this for? It's a real hassle and I'm so tired. Why do I have to do this again? So we need to convince ourselves. So this is the fourth argument he has in favor of Karma Yoga, which is essentially there's cycles in this world. And this is one cycle he's talking about in particular. And that when there's a cycle, that means that everybody has to do their duty in order to preserve the cycle, because everything is interconnected, and if one person doesn't do his duty, it affects the whole. So he's talking about dharma, or preserving the balance of the world. So Amma also says that we're not isolated islands, we're all links on the same chain of life. And if you remember recently she was talking about a net. Let's say you have 50 people holding a net. One person on one place in the net just kind of jiggles it like that, and the ripples go through the net and reach everybody. We saw that also after the tsunami. The tsunami was in Indonesia. The waves reached Africa. And in Kerala, in Amritapuri, people died. Not Amritapuri, but the neighboring villages. And it happened in Indonesia. What better proof do we need that the whole world is interconnected? So Amma says we have to live our lives with an understanding that everything is interconnected. And while animals are programmed to offer selflessly, human beings are not programmed that way. So it takes effort to remember that we have to live with that awareness and make some kind of selfless offering. It's not the animals and the plants that create the environmental imbalance, right? If we have lots of monarch butterflies, we're not going to have a problem on this planet. It's the human beings that do all the mischief. So, like we said, the body is the perfect proof that we should be living selflessly. And even in our daily lives, let's say you want your hand to be strong. You can't inject strength into the hand, right? How does the hand become strong? Nourishment, vitamins and minerals reach the hand through the mouth, right? So the hand has to selflessly serve the mouth by putting food in the mouth. And then that food and nutrition goes in and gets distributed throughout the whole body, including the hand. So in this analogy, we're all like the hand, there's this huge body, God's body, that is this planet and this society and this world. We offer some selfless service to the totality, and we also get nourished as a result. We're part of the totality. So this is what Krishna is saying. It says there's a cycle on this planet and in this universe, and we have to play our role and make an offering, and we will get nourished indirectly as a result. So I want to draw on the board in a second. But the point here is that there's nothing actually religious or sort of blind faith about this concept, because cycles are even scientific. Even the scientists will tell you that there's a cycle of water on the planet, nitrogen cycles in the soil, right? Oxygen and CO2. If human beings alone were here, we wouldn't survive for a minute. we die because of CO2 poisoning, right? It's because the plants are there. The trees, they produce the oxygen. But they need CO2. We're very good at producing lots of CO2. We overproduce, But the point is that that's a balance of oxygen and carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. And so the balance, these cycles create the balance, and we have to preserve those cycles. It's a very simple scientific concept, so you don't have to be a believer in God. So this is an argument that appeals even to people who are atheistic. So in case you have friends and people who who are not really devout followers of any faith, you can talk to them about it in this way, these terms. Karma Yoga and Yajna is a way of life that preserves the balance, the harmony, the cycles that already exist there in the universe. So I'm going to explain how this cycle that he's explaining is very important for us in spirituality, so I'm just going to draw it on the board. Do we have the wireless mic? I can talk loud, it doesn't matter. Can everybody see this? The angle's okay? So, what is the first thing he says in this verse? Anad. Okay. So we've got food, right? So food means not like potato chips and like McDonald's. He's talking about the old days. Food used to come from the fields. Even if you lived, you weren't a farmer, you knew and you could see it was probably right in your backyard. There was some food. So when food comes from the land, right? What do you need to nourish the land to produce food? Rain. Yeah, you need rain. So, rain. Then, food goes and nourishes all beings. And then, all beings engage in action. Now, what is the connection between action and rain, though? It's a cycle, so there has to be some kind of... It's not that action produces rain. We do it in the modern day, we do cloud seeding with silver dioxide or something like that, but that's not creating the rain, it's just making the H2O fall from the clouds. It's already there, they're just forcing it to fall, right? So, what is that factor that turns action into something that creates rain? Yajna. So this is the piece that we're missing from the puzzle. Yajna. Selfless action. So action combined with an attitude of selflessness is what creates rain. So I remember I was in Kenya a number of years ago, and they were having a terrible drought, and I told everybody that, I think I went on, they had interviewed me on TV or something like that, and I said, we're going to go clean a slum in Nairobi. So in India, they say that selfless actions bring about rain. So, why not come and help us clean up the slum, and then you never know what's going to happen. So there was a huge crowd to come help us clean up the slum. And after that, we played some soccer with the kids that were there. And as we were getting into the buses to go home, very, not like a torrential downpour, but they hadn't had any rain at all for months. And the animals were all dying in the jungle and everything. So the rain, a little bit of rain started falling, and the next day there was a lot of rain. But it is said in the Indian tradition that after you do a ceremony, after you do a puja or a fire ceremony, if some rain falls after that, what does it mean? Anybody know what it's supposed to symbolize?
Very auspicious.
Very auspicious. Why is it auspicious? What does it symbolize?
The gods have responded.
The gods have responded. They received your offering. That's what we believe, that if you offer something, it's one thing to offer it. Let's say somebody comes to your house and you put the food on the table, they sit there and they talk with you and they don't eat anything and leave. Oh my gosh, they didn't eat anything. You'll be sad, right? You want them to, it's not, offering is one thing, they have to eat it also. So we can offer, but if we have a pure attitude and if we have the right, feeling when we're offering, the gods will receive it. So that rainfall is said to be the symbol that your offering was received. So it happened right after we did this, and everybody was really happy. And many times, it's said also in the in the scriptures that sometimes the presence of one dharmic individual can bring about the rain. So many times, as soon as Amma lands in a place, it starts raining. We've seen it over and over again. They were having a shortage of rain. Australia, Santa Fe, Africa, many places where they have these persistent droughts. The day that Amma arrives, or the next day, it starts raining finally. So I've seen that over and over again. Sometimes it rains so much that they don't know what to do because it's a torrential downpour of grace. So anyhow, this is how the cycle gets completed, is selfless actions. And there was a terrible drought in India in 1975. Was anybody, you guys might have been, you were already here at that time? You heard about that drought? No, there was supposedly a really bad drought in 1975. What I learned, this is in India, in the ashram, is that there were people of all religions all over the country prayed, and there was a huge yajna that was performed in Kanyakumari for 7 days. And right after that, it started raining. So that's how they got rid of the drought. What do? You're helpless. All you can do is pray to God. And that's a ritual form of yajna. But what Amma would say is that make your whole life a yajna. Don't just do it when there's a terrible drought. From morning until night, every day, we can make our life into an offering. Then you don't have to do a special, puja or ceremony, when you want something. So another important point to remember is that this is how the harmony, is represented in one cycle, right? So the harmony is built into nature. It's built into the universe through cycles. So we don't have to, it's not human beings' job to create harmony. You don't create peace or harmony, right? It's already part of the universe. So if it's already there, what's our job? Yeah, and don't disturb it, right? Nature's already in harmony. So just don't disturb nature's harmony. Don't disrupt it. Don't be an obstacle. That's all our job is. Don't ruin the harmony that's already there. Amma said in her satsang, it said that if the phytoplankton is decreasing so much in the ocean, at this rate, many species will be extinct if phytoplankton increases more. But if humans disappear, everything will flourish on the planet like never before. Because humans are the ones that are disturbing the balance. So let's say you're singing bhajans and everybody's clapping like this, and you're clapping off beat. You disturb the harmony, right? You disturb the rhythm. How do you restore the rhythm? Stop it. Just whatever you're doing, stop it. Then the harmony is automatically restored. So this is basically our dharma. Is very simple. Don't disturb the harmony that's already there in nature. And human beings just have to get along with each other and not disturb the inherent balance that's there in the world. Because of the laws of nature, everything returns to a state of equilibrium automatically. Just don't disrupt that process. So that means cycles are not just in nature. There's all kinds of cycles in society, distribution of wealth, economic cycles, ecological, yes, physical cycles in the body, also psychological cycles in society. There's a cycle of anger. We've all experienced it. You go somewhere, you get exposed to somebody's anger, you bring home that anger with you, you vent it on somebody else at home, that person becomes angry, then maybe they vent it on the kids become angry, they go to school, become a bully, Then that kid has scars on his heart. When he becomes a father, he's mean to his kid. So there's cycles of emotions as well in society. So we should these cycles are a law. They just are there. We have to accept them. We have to use them in a positive way. Instead, we can do what Amma does, which is create a cycle of positive energy, a cycle of love, a cycle of selflessness, a cycle of compassion and understanding. That's another way of doing yajna. So there's a lot more we can talk about yajna, but we're running out of time, and I think I want to leave a few minutes at the end for questions, in case something came up in your mind. Let me show you. Any questions?
It would be a good time to pass out a volunteer sheet to the garbage detail now.
Yeah, I think so, exactly. Yeah. Boy, I mean, we really need someone to do a selfless ritual, a compost ritual. Compost is a beautiful example of yajna. It's the remnants, right? If you take, I'm not trying to make a commercial, I'm just saying these are cycles, right? You've got food, the leftovers, the worst leftovers, they call it etchil in India or in Kerala. It's like a person's leftovers. Ours is etchil or like scraps, but if it's ammas, we call it prasad, right? Same leftover food, but we call it prasad. So that leftover food, you take it, you convert it into soil through the process of composting. That's a yajna also. And then you use that to create more food. This is how nature does it. If we want to live in harmony with these laws and we want to purify ourselves, we've got to do composting. I don't know how we're going to do it. We can just throw it all up in the air and say, please, someone do it. It's going to fall back on our head. Any other questions regarding this? Amma's ashram motto. Anybody remember what the ashram motto is? It's on that emblem. Tyage neke amritattamanushu. Tyaga means sacrifice. It means karma yoga in one sense. The highest form of tyaga is relinquishing the notion of I and mine. That is probably what Amma really means by tyaga or sacrifice. Sacrifice not just a little bit of your time, but that notion that this belongs to me. This is my house, my car, my family. We have to relinquish that. That's an even higher yajna. And then ultimately, Amma would say you have to sacrifice that notion that you exist as separate from God. That's the ultimate tyaga, the ultimate sacrifice. But the first step is to train yourself to give more than taking. That's a step in the right direction. Even that is like, it takes a lot of effort. Right now we're trained to take, not give. Okay. Well, then we can meditate for some time. Oh, and the next class, I'm not sure, next Friday I will be with Amma, because there's a retreat and Ramakrishna Swami is still in India, so they're a little short-staffed. So I have to go for the retreat and then come back on late Friday night, so we won't have this class next week, unfortunately. I'm up for having it the next week, but I don't know if anybody will be here the next week. We can try. Today's the 5th, so 12th is the next week. 19th, if anybody's available and they're not drowning in work, we can have one more class before Amma comes. So let's chant Asatoma, and then we'll meditate and close with the other 2 mantras afterwards. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Those of you few more minutes. So close your eyes and keep your spine and neck straight yet relaxed. Take a few long, deep breaths, feeling your body and mind relaxing further and further with each breath. Try to feel Lama's subtle presence here with us in this room and with you in your heart. Focus your awareness on the rhythm of your breathing. Breathe with a deep feeling, fully conscious of the rhythm of the breath as it flows in and out. And as you breathe in, let us feel immensely grateful for the miracle of nature, whereby this oxygen is produced. We're absolutely helpless. We've done nothing to create the air that we breathe. Just simply grace that there is air for us to breathe. Let us not take even a single breath for granted. For so many decades, we took the air and the oxygen and never gave anything back in return. Now let us feel gratitude for all the nourishment we've received over so many decades. The sun, the rain, and the earth produced each morsel of food we imbibed. We never repaid anything to them. At least now we can feel gratitude and give something in return to this world for all the grace and blessings we've received. Let us also give thanks to the Supreme Being for the miracle of this body. Almost every function happens without any effort on our part. We abuse the body, it still persists and helps us, performing all the functions faithfully. At least now we can feel gratitude for the divine powers making this body function. And let us conclude by offering our prayers and gratitude to Amma. O my beloved Mother, most compassionate Mother of the universe, Amma, this ignorant child of yours is immersed in the darkness of selfishness. Please guide me towards your light of selflessness. Please help me to direct all my energies, thoughts, words, and actions towards selfless aims. Help me to progress and evolve on the path, Amma. Now I'm resting in your safe and loving arms, but due to my ego I may fall. Please protect me and don't let that happen, Amma. Help me offer this life for the sake of your sacred mission, Amma. Guide me and keep me close to you. Now let us conclude with the final prayers, Loka Samasta and Purnamada. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnāād Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamādāya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. One more long deep breath. And as you exhale, slowly open your eyes. Namaskar.